Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you're doing well wherever you may be. Today's episode is called Don't Collect 'Em All, ? Subtitled, Navigating the World of quote-unquote money grab releases. Now, before we jump right in, I want to talk about how I arrived at coming up with this episode, this topic, because it's so important as it connects to a lot of the things I'm going to say today. So about a year and a half, 2 years, maybe even 2.5 years, I remember watching a channel on YouTube that's dedicated to music, and it was one of those panel Zoom episodes. And in the panel, there was a person, and I don't remember what the topic of the day was, but they were talking about music, of course, and this person mentioned how when it came to a particular band and some of their favorite bands and even other merchandising, they have to purchase everything. And this person went into great detail explaining that thought process. At the age of 8 or 9, they talked about how they sat down to watch television Saturday morning, what have you, and there was a commercial for action figures, and whether it was part of the jingle or part of the slogan or part of the narrative, of course it was that, the narrator said, collect them all. And the person in the panel admitted, saying that they took this to heart, and that to this very day, at the time the video was, that's what they did. So they would buy everything. So say for a particular band, they would buy the album no matter how many times it was reissued, that kind of thing, picture disc, you name it. And I thought to myself, this person has been misled, manipulated by marketing and advertising. At the age of 8 or 9, they're very impressionable, they're very gullible. So I thought that was, and still think that's, quite a shame, right? And I could relate to this because I remember being a young boy and watching those similar or same commercials and the person saying, collect them all. But I never gave in to that marketing hype or that marketing trick or strategy, right? Do I collect a lot of things? Yeah. Do I own everything from specific bands' discographies? Yeah. But I'm not going to own, say, 8 or 9 different versions of, say, Power Slave by Iron Maiden. That kind of thing, right? Not that there is, but just as an example, hypothetically. So that's what I'm talking about. And in a similar vein, I remember 7 or 8 years ago, back in the day when I used to listen to the radio in the car, there was I was listening to the morning program I used to like so much, and a commercial comes on, and the narrator of the commercial is the host of the show that I listen to, and he says, your life will not be complete unless you buy this app. And I thought to myself, you expletive. That's criminal, if you ask me, in a way, right? To say your life isn't complete. This marketing strategy to manipulate people thinking that they're unhappy because they don't own something, right? Anyway, so this makes me think to a small degree of, and you've seen it, many of you, I know lots of you have experienced this. You're in Walmart, or you're in Target, or you're in a grocery store, or whatever, department store, you name it, right? And there's a little girl or a little boy with their parents, or one of their parents, or grandmother, or whatever, and they're bawling. They're throwing a temper tantrum, or both, and they're pointing at an item. I want it. I want it. And the parent or grandparent or whatever says, you have that already, but I won't, right? But I want it. Sweetie, you have that already. And they keep throwing that fit or keep crying, shouting, I want it over. And then, parents have to escort their child out the store because they're making a scene, or maybe not, but calm them down, that sort of thing. So am I saying people who want to buy the 20th version of, say, Genesis's Foxtrot, as an example, not that there are 20 versions, but, you get my point, right? Am I saying they're children? Am I saying they're spoiled rotten? No, I'm just saying it's a comparison. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that, like that child, you want to purchase something even though you own it already. And in many cases, it makes sense because there's bonus tracks or that sort of thing to the music, but in many cases, it doesn't. So that's some of the stuff that inspired me to talk about this controversial topic with you today. It is controversial, but I think it's an important discussion, an important topic, and a very good debate. So again, I'm not calling anyone spoiled rotten or children. I'm just showing you that there's a comparison, that even adults, in other words, want things they already have. And to me, that logically doesn't make sense. Not in all cases, but in many cases. Okay, so enough with that. Now, one more thing before we jump in. Let me also preface by saying this video is just my opinion. Nothing I say here am I saying nor implying you must believe. Okay? I'm just sharing with you my thoughts. A lot of what I have to share with you is rhetorical. Just expressing myself, opening the thought valves, if you will, right? These are just my opinions. They're nothing more, nothing less. All right. So let's jump right in. Here's a copy of King Crimson's Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. I'll come around to telling you which version this is in a moment. But first, let's talk about the history of different forms of music media, because I think it's relevant to our discussion today. So back in the 1950s, you had reel-to-reel. This was also popular in the 70s. I remember going by my cousin's house at a young age, and I never thought that Boston's debut sounded better than on that reel-to-reel. Anyway, so reel-to-reel. Then in 1964, 12-inch vinyl. 8-track, 1967. Cassette tape, 1972. The CD, 1985, that Sony and Philips merger, right? Or working together. MP3 file, 2005. Blu-ray disc, 2006. 12-inch vinyl again, 2018, the resurgence of vinyl, right? And then I wrote here, what's next? Question mark, question mark. And then when it comes to CD, you have all kinds of different versions. You have the gold edition stuff. You have the German and Japanese pressings, which many argue are superior than others. And in many cases, those are true, or can be true, excuse me. Now, when it comes to, see if I missed anything. No. Now, when it comes to Larks, Tongues, and Aspic, I first owned this on 8-track. And the reason I had it on 8-track is because a friend of mine in high school gave me his hand-me-downs. He gave me an 8-track player and an assorted mix of 8-track tapes. One of them was this, Jethro Tull's Greatest Hits, or whatever it was called. It's the white cover with a caricature of Ian Anderson standing on one foot. Excuse me. And like I said, some other stuff. And then eventually I end up selling this at a garage sale with the 8-tracks themselves, because I was already into vinyl when I got this 8-track player, but it saved me from having to go out and purchase these 8-tracks as vinyl. I get rid of the 8-track player, as I said, and then everything from that moment forward was essentially vinyl, except for music in my car, which was still cassette. So I had it on 8-track. Then I get this on vinyl. Then I get this on CD, the first pressing. This is not this one. Then I get it again. And this is the 30th anniversary edition of Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. This is where I came in with King Crimson, thanks to that 8-track player. So I'm in high school. Despite the fact that this is a 30th anniversary edition, there are only the 6 original tracks here. They're just remastered. So as you can see, I'm guilty also of buying something that I already have. All right, so, and sometimes, as we'll see, it's understandable. Sometimes, not so much. Again, in my humble opinion. All right, so, now here are the various incarnations of Larks, Tongues, and Aspic in different mediums of music. I showed you the CD, but you also have vinyl, 8-track, cassette, Blu-ray disc. But let's focus on the CD as an example and go through the various incarnations. I don't remember, I couldn't find the date when it was originally released on CD, that previous one that I had. The one that I just showed you, the 30th anniversary, came out in 2004. No new tracks, as I said. Then a huge box set came out, maybe not necessarily in this order. And this is not it, but this is the King Crimson Heaven and Earth box set, which has the projects lineups and all that incarnation of the band. I think most of it's post Adrian Belew, maybe some of it's Belew, I'm not sure. I still have to pour through much of that. I've listened to about half of that. It's like 25 CDs, so I still have a lot way to go with that. So King Crimson, before this, they started putting out all of their studio albums in these type of box sets, and one of them, of course, was Larks, Tongues, and Aspic, I don't remember the year. You have like 25 to 30 CDs in there. And then you get the 40th anniversary on CD, 2012. Then you get the Steven Wilson remix 2020, excuse me. Then you get the Legacy Edition, which came out early 2023 or late 2022. And then this just came out again as a 50th anniversary like 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week ago. 50th anniversary, October 2023. So this month. And I think it's 6 or 7 CDs maybe. It's a box set, but not as exhaustive as the one that I showed you. That's similar to the one that's the Heaven and Earth. So if we stick to King Crimson for a moment, they've not released any new music since The Power to Believe. That was their last studio album. So that came out in 2003. So no new King Crimson material, studio material in 20 years. And so I think that's part of the problem. Yes, there's some great live stuff out there the band puts out year after year after year. But again, it's very similar to rehashing the same old studio tracks over and over again. Do you really need another live version of this song or these songs, that sort of thing? I'm guilty of that. I'm about to show you some of the stuff that I have. So here we go. I have this. Every year it seems they put out an Elements box set of their previous year's tour. I can't afford to get all these. Let's see. This has a weird title. This is a 3 CD set called Radical Action to Unseat the Hold of Monkey Mind. This is Meltdown. This is live in Mexico. Everything I'm showing you is quite good, if not great. This next one is fabulous. King Crimson live in Vienna. CD, I think this is a 2 CD set. Let's see. Well, I think it's 2 CD set. Anyway, so as I'm showing you, I'm guilty of that as well. However, I don't have everything by King Crimson. I just can't afford it. So, staying on the King Crimson thing here, King Crimson therefore have 2 cash cows. Again, not having any new material in 20 years. Okay, so the first cash cow is, as I said, constantly putting out more and more live material, and I've showed you those examples. Number 2, their second cash cow is constantly putting out in rotation. Think of Disney, right? They release from the vault that they have, right? Pinocchio, they put it back in the vault. Then Bambi comes out. Then Dumbo, right? On and on and on, right? And now they're making them as live versions, right? So the second cash cow is constantly putting out in rotation, like Disney, the same studio albums out in various incarnations as reissues, 30th anniversary, 40th anniversary, 50th anniversary, box set, new box set, on and on and on, and it's never ending. Other bands do this, of course. Essentially what we have here are bands, King Crimson, not the only one, resting on their laurels. Again, no new material, King Crimson as the example, in 20 years. All right. This is the only copy that I own. That's it. I got fed up. I was tempted to get the Steven Wilson remix, but I said, you know what? This is all I need. All right. So, again, the rhetorical question is, to make you think, hopefully is, when does it stop? Hey, if you're rich and you can afford all this, great. But many of us, we can't. I'm a teacher. I can't afford to buy a $40 CD every time it's re-released in a new iteration. Just can't. So I've talked about the various types of media music can come in, but now it's time to mention the medium within the medium. So we're sticking to CD. Remastered. 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 Remastered for the umpteenth time, in other words. Reissued with bonus tracks. Reissued with a bonus disc or discs reissue. May have live material, demos, alternate tracks, remixes, radio edits, BBC versions, bonus DVD, bonus Blu-ray. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong, these can be fun and exciting. These can be wonderful, downright wonderful. However, with some of these bands and artists, it's never ending. It seems anyway. So, where do you draw the line as a consumer? Yeah, I think of Jean-Luc Picard. The line stops here. No further, right? If you're a Star Trek person, you know what I'm talking about. I can't do his impression, but very good. But anyway, there you have it. So again, don't get me wrong. These, again, can be wonderful. However, for me at least, and I can't speak for others, but I think that for many of us, and again, I could be wrong, I think for many of us, some of this can be fun and exciting and wonderful, and it is. But sometimes it becomes more of a chore to try to keep up with the latest version of something we own already. Again, that child in the store, right, crying. All right. So then it begs the question, why do bands and artists do this? The band or artist in question has been around for decades in many cases, and or a shell of their former selves, or a parody of themselves. This is often the case. Or the band may not exist anymore. Either way, members in the band or from the band may be trying to live past glories, or it's a way to stay relevant. However, that begs another question, which only you can answer, and that is, but are they still relevant? Only you can make that decision. It's an opinion. Now, what often happens with reissues, etc., are people, myself included, is that we buy, and this isn't all the time, this is a possibility, and this can happen, and it does happen, myself included. We buy an album for the umpteenth time, for bonus tracks, etc., but find ourselves listening to once and never again, or twice and never again. And in many cases, these are bonus tracks or whatever that have unfinished songs, demos, rehearsals, etc. Here's an example of Scorpions Taken by Force. The only reason I bought this is because it has a studio version of Suspend Your Love. This is the only place to get it, at least currently as far as I know. And the only other place you find the song itself is on Tokyo Tapes. It's a live version though. And so when I saw that this was available, I grabbed it. Plus, the main reason I grabbed this is because I don't own this on CD or vinyl or any other format except MP3, and I like to have physical media, and that's a video I did a long time ago on why I purchased physical media, so if you want to look at that, that's fine. Shameless plug. Anyway, so if Suspend Your Love wasn't on here, I would not have gotten this if I owned this already, and here's why. Because all the other bonus tracks that come on here are demos and rehearsals, and the band's playing the song, but Klaus is just saying da-da, da-da, da-da the whole time. There's no actual lyrics, and so it's worthless. So this is an example, or possible example, of why you may or may not want this, and therefore it may or may not be a money grab. All right. So this begs another question. Why run the risk of spending your hard-earned money on something you may listen to only once? Isn't it better to do before you purchase anything, before you buy anything, to invest some time, including listening to the music? Go on YouTube, go on Spotify, go on Alexa or whatever streaming you have available to you, or go by a friend's house who has that. Now, if we go back to King Crimson for a minute, and you have the box set of Lark's Tongues and Aspic, you don't really have the time, do you, to listen to 20 plus CDs? Do you really want, and then therefore it begs the question, do you really need that box set? Do you want 70 versions of the same songs over and over again, or something to that effect? This at least isn't the same disc over and over and over again with different versions. There's some of that, but each disc is either some live stuff or Project Volume 1, Volume 2, various live dates, that kind of thing. So anyway, for some this would be a money grab. For me it wasn't. So again, that's the kind of the point of today's money grab is an opinion. All right. Now here's some other examples of potential money grabs. Here is Uriah Heep's Demons and Wizards. This is not a money grab. I'm showing this because this is my first CD of this album, and my mom got this for me for Christmas. I've told this story already, so I won't go into any much detail about this, but this is the first pressing, the first printing of this. So there's two reasons for me to keep this. One, it's sentimental because my mom bought this for me. My mom's no longer with me. Two, it's the first printing. So it's historic. Maybe not the right word. And I also have this version, which I recently bought because I've been looking for this for a long time. This is the 2017 version that has a bonus disc with all kinds of cool alternate versions. Okay, you don't have 70 different versions of the same song. You maybe have one or two versions of the same song. This is really good. This is worth having. But some people might find this a money grab. I don't own any other versions of Demons and Wizards. I got this in high school, thanks to Mom, and I just got this a month and a half ago, maybe. So it's a long gap. I didn't feel the need to have 16 versions of this. There is a version that came out not too recently, and this has had many incarnations, maybe not as many as the King Crimson sets, but not too long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer, but it doesn't seem that long ago. Anyway, whoever has Demons and Wizard, the rights to it, they re-released it on CD with an upgraded Roger Dean art cover and a new booklet. I wasn't going to buy it again just to have a booklet and new artwork. The artwork that I have here is just fine. Signals, another example, by Rush. The 40th anniversary came out 6 months ago, a year ago, and there's no new material on it, despite that there are 2 discs. Not worth having, if you ask me. Let me get this monster out. Here's the Kiss box set, Creatures of the Night. For me, this is a money grab. For others, it's not. For me, here's why it's a money grab, and I regret purchasing this. Usually the route I take when you have giant box sets like this, think of Pink Floyd with their Immersion box set. You had The Wall, Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon, etc., right? And instead I went with the 2 discs, and those were called Experience Editions. So I didn't see the need for, again, 70 different versions of the same songs, right? That kind of thing. And so, like I said, I bought the Experience versions. And if you talk about the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon 2 CD set, you get the original disc remastered. Then you get the live version of Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety at Wembley. And then recently, they just put out the Wembley tracks, the whole album by itself without the original remastered disc. So it's a 1 disc set of just the live performance of Dark Side of the Moon. So that's been reissued. Well, I don't need that because I have it already on the 2 disc set that I have. So that's it. And yet some people are going to buy it even though they have the Experience set. I just don't get that logic. Anyway, so if you go back to the Kiss box set, I'm disappointed in it and regret buying it because I bought it for the live material. And I thought I could get, when I was researching it, I thought they would have the entire live set on the 2 disc version. They didn't. The 2 disc set for this Kiss box set has the original studio album remastered, and then it has, the second disc has 5 or 6 demos that make its way into the box set. There's buku demos on the box set, 5 or 6 of those on the second disc, and then it has 7 or 8 songs from the 2 CD live set. So it doesn't give you the full concert. So in a way, marketing manipulated me, and I'm to blame for buying this. I didn't have to, but I wanted those. I was going to take a gamble, and because I love live material, I eat up live material, all the time. It's one of my favorite things to pursue. So I thought maybe this will be another great live album from Kiss. It's terrible. Well, it's not terrible. It's not very good. The sound recording is very bland. It's uninspired. So, and again, I thought that it would be like the Pink Floyd route. They'd have all the, that's because that's what you usually get, right? You get the remastered disc, and then you get the whole live set. Nope. Having a disc with some demos and part of the live concert, that doesn't make sense to me. So I think I would have to argue that even that 2 CD set's a money grab because it's incomplete. Because do one or the other. Give all the demos or the big demos. You can't do them all, but give a big chunk of the best of the demos, or give us the whole live show on disc. So this for me was a money grab, but there are others who love it. God bless them. Can't argue with someone's opinion. All right. Well, you could, but it's an opinion. So now I want to switch gears to Van Halen, and by that I mean the new Hagar era LED box set that just came out. And so about a week ago, I was watching a different YouTube channel. It's about music, and the person who hosts that channel was talking about how they bought it, and he or she warned us that if you're going to get this, be aware that it's not remastered as announced. It's actually remixed. And he said, or she said, that it doesn't have the punch of the original remastered Hagar era CDs. And so I thought, okay, then I'm not going to get this. Not that I necessarily would have anyway, because I'm not the biggest Hagar era Van Halen fan. I like Hagar's solo stuff much better, and Montrose, the first album. But anyway, I digress a little bit. So now all thoughts of possibly getting it went out the window, because if it doesn't have the punch of the original remastered CDs, then it's not worth getting. But what I thought odd was the person in question, the host of the show, he or she said, it doesn't have the punch of the originals. They're not remastered. They remixed. I still like it. I have a hard time understanding the reconciliation of that paradox or contradiction, but again, to each his own. So anyway, but I'm not done with the story, because I decided to post in the comments that, and I thought I made it clear that this was my opinion. I said, I think this is a money grab. And this other commenter went off on me. He got really worked up, and he or she was saying, so you say everything's a money grab? So this person was putting words in my mouth. In no way, shape, or form did I say that everything is a money grab. I said this, I think, particularly is a money grab. And again, I said because it's, what do you call it when it's false advertising? It's not remastered, it's remixed, and it doesn't carry that punch, like the gentleman or the woman said, who's the host. And I thought that would make sense. And this person just kept going at me, and he or she said, the commenter said, well, Hagar and Anthony and Alex don't need the money. And I thought to myself, well, they're getting it. And lo and behold, a week later, there's a YouTube video, and the thumbnail has Alex and Michael Anthony sitting on a couch, probably in Hagar or Anthony's home, and both of them are holding up the box set in each of their hands. So there's 4 copies displayed, and they have big smiles on their faces. Well, God bless them. These two guys are great, but they are getting the money. Whether they need it or not is not the point. They're getting the money. And so I think my logic in my argument is still valid, because they're getting the money, they're getting a piece of the pie. But this notion of, for me personally, it's a money grab because it's not an improvement upon. So how do you say something's not an improvement upon the previous release? I still like it and I'm glad I bought it. I don't get that. And I confess I could be the one who's in the wrong here. I just don't get that. Maybe it'll, I guess the argument is maybe it'll grow on the person. And that's fair. Okay. But let me continue with this notion of where I believe this is going towards. So I'm convinced bands and artists alike are involved with the re-recording and reissued. In other words, what I'm saying, bands and artists alike are involved in getting a piece of the pie. Whether the record company is the one who comes up with the idea, hey, let's re-release this, blah, 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 right? What's the band members going to say? No. So in many ways, it's not their fault. But at the same time, these bands and artists are responsible, in a part, for this constant rotation of reissues over and over and over again. And because the reason for that, or one possible reason, is because it's the only way to keep the well from going dry. And or agreed. And like I said before, you can interpret to avoid the well from going dry could mean to keep the finances going, but also to keep the band being relevant going, right? So there you have it. Now let's move on to Aerosmith and their new greatest hits, which is a 3 vinyl collection or a 3 CD set. And this is kind of the same issue, similar to what Van Halen's, but I think this is even worse, and I'll expand upon that in a minute. So this following example is a conversation I had with a friend of mine whose favorite band is Aerosmith. And so they got this right the day it came out, and I know their music collection quite well, because we spend a lot of time. I go over to their place, we listen to music. They come over here, we listen to music, etc. Right? So let's say you have all the songs already, like this person does. Why do you need to buy this specific greatest hits collection if you already possess every song that's on these 3 discs or vinyl recordings? Why do you need it? So I asked my friend this. His response: I need it for my collection. They have Pandora's Box. They have Box of Fire. They have quite a few of the box sets and greatest hits compilations that Aerosmith have produced throughout the years. So I respond, it's just going to sit there because you can play these from other discs you own already. Their response: I need it for my collection. My translation, which I did not share with my friend: I can't sleep at night or rest until it's wedged in there with the rest of my discography. My response: you're not going to play it. Their response: I need it in my collection. Now, when it comes to greatest hits, I dump these after I have all the songs on that greatest hits in my collection because I've purchased more of the discography. I don't throw it away. That would be ridiculous. I would give it to someone who would appreciate it and put it to good use, right? The opposite example would be where it's a money grab. For example, a while back, I guess maybe going back 20 years or so, Queensrÿche put out a anthology or a 2-disc set, and the way they lured people into buying it is that all the songs on the 2-disc set were songs we already had, but one song was new. I don't fall for that. And then years later, I listened to it, and I can't remember what the song is now. Tells you what an impression it made on me, right? And I remember listening to the song going, yeah, that's not very good. So that's another example of that marketing hype. Now, so when it comes to having gaps in your discography, I get wanting to own everything, but do you have them in your collection because you like a lot of the material on the CDs individually in that collection? So, for example, I don't own Power Windows and Hold Your Fire anymore by Rush. After my ceiling collapsed and damaged most of my Rush collection, I went on a quest to purchase all the Rush CDs that I needed to replace that I still wanted. So I realized I don't listen to these very often, maybe 4 songs or 5 songs from those 2 CDs once a year or once every 2 years or something to that effect. Every once in a while I'll listen to Open Secrets. Once in a while I'll listen to Mystic Rhythms. Once in a while I'll listen to Middletown Dreams, and there's another song that's eluding me. So maybe 4, 5 songs tops from those 2 albums. I have those in MP3 format, so I don't need to purchase those. I was just going to spend my money for something I already have. In this case, I didn't need them. But I see, and then Bowie's the same way. I have never owned Black Tie, White Noise. I have never owned Tonight. I have never owned Never Let Me Down. I have a couple songs from each of those on MP3 format, but that's it. I have no desire to have those. I sleep very fine at night without those 3 CDs in my Bowie collection. I have everything by Bowie, but those 3. And I sleep just fine, as I said. Now, in a similar vein, if you watch a lot of music channels like I do on YouTube, I see this all the time where they're doing a ranking or whatever, and they talk about music where the band went astray or they jumped the shark or this is where the band stopped being good or whatever catchphrase, right? And they still produce the album. Why? Why hold on to something if you don't like it or don't listen? Again, I don't understand. Give it to someone who it's going to be put to good use, who will appreciate it, like I said. So here's some examples. Both Blaze Bayley albums by Iron Maiden, both Tim Ripper Owens by Judas Priest, the 4th album by Wishbone Ash, simply called Wishbone Ash 4, Calling All Stations by Genesis, Load and Reload by Metallica, Lulu by Metallica and Lou Reed, Metal Machine Music by Lou Reed, Sweet, their album Cut Above the Rest. So I've seen people talk about these and they produce them am thinking, why is that sitting in your discography or your collection when you can give it, as I said, give it to someone, put it to good use, and now you have room for something you're actually going to like, right? That's my logic. Anyway, now let's talk about greatest hits, and specifically coming back to that, I want to talk about Aerosmith's compilation or greatest hits, what they've produced since they've been around as a band. There are quite a few, so let's look at these. Greatest Hits, 1980. Anthology, 1988. Gems, 1988. Pandora's Box, 1991. Pandora's Toys, 1994. Big Ones, 1994. Box of Fire, 1994. Classic Aerosmith, the Universal Masters Collection, 2000. Young Lust Anthology, 2001. Oh Yeah, Ultimate Aerosmith Hits, 2002. 20th Century Masters, the Millennium Collection, 2003. Devil's Got a New Disguise, 2006. Tough Love, Best of Ballads, 2011. Essential Aerosmith, 2011. And then the new one, Greatest Hits, 2023. So this has come full circle. Their first Greatest Hits album was 1980, and then their newest one, 2023, both called the same thing. That can be misleading, right? So they have 15 total anthologies or greatest hits in their in their greatest hits discography, if you will. Let me repeat that, 15 total. Now, I know what you're thinking. Some of these are by different record labels, and you would be right, of course, but it still points to the G word, and that is greed. You can't tell me that this isn't greed. You have 15 different greatest hits albums. If this isn't greed, I don't know what is. Now, am I saying not to buy something? Absolutely not. What I'm saying is do your research first, your due diligence. Be selective. Listen to things first. Don't give your hard-earned money to those trying to take advantage of you. I often take the plunge, and sometimes I love it, sometimes I get burned. It can be wonderful, it can be exciting, but sometimes, as I said, sometimes it's more of a chore than wonderful and exciting. All right, so let me give you an example of something that's not a money grab for many of us, and that is Rush Moving Pictures, the remastered. Now, you could argue a third of this is money grab, the remastered version of Moving Pictures for like the 5th or 6th time, right? But why you should get this if you're a Rush fan, if you're a big collector of Rush, is because it has the entire set list from when they were touring for Moving Pictures and or Exit Stage Left. And so if you have Exit Stage Left, that's an incomplete album. It's because the set list is incomplete. And I remember years ago being on Amazon.com and posting my criticism of Exit Stage Left, and I was talking about how, since at the time I was posting it, Rush were in the throes and beginning stages of putting out reissues of their classic lineup albums. Their classic albums with bonus discs of live recordings for many of them. And I thought, man, if they could do that for Exit Stage Left and put the entire set list and do a 30th anniversary or whatever, that would be great. And one of the guys commented to my comment and said, man, that would be awesome. And lo and behold, our wish came true. Our wishful thinking came true, but so many years later. And so this is an example of where, the gamble of buying a reissue came into fruition. It was worthwhile. But I'm sure there are people out there who think this was not a good idea. Again, it boils down to opinion. So once again, I'm not saying not to buy. I'm not saying you're a child if you purchase something that you already own. I'm just saying do your due diligence, be selective, careful who you give your money to, that sort of thing, right? So overall, one man or woman's idea of a money grab is another man's treasure. Keep in mind, however, the record label, band members, and whoever else is part of the pie are the ones really with the treasure, and they're taking it all the way to the bank. Please understand, I'm not saying everything's a money grab. I'm just saying be careful. Thanks for watching. Take care now. Bye.